Good morning, everyone. I'm calling this workshop of January 30th to order. Mr. Ayers, would you please open the workshop?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, so our workshop today, really three-part. We're going to start around first our code of conduct, and then we're going to have a piece around our threat management, and then finally our positive behavior interventions and supports we do in our classroom. So we haven't had a workshop, I think, in a couple months or so. So again, I know this kind of seems like a formal setting, but I want these workshops to be where I can get feedback. So I encourage. I look forward to the conversation today. As we first talk, Mr. Crystal will open up around our code of conduct, then Ms. Perez will move into our threat management, and then finally Ms. Wren with our PBIS system. So the plan is take about the first 15, 20 minutes, go through our presentations, and we'll be able to take any feedback from the board. But again, look forward to the conversations today. We're going to dive into some data today. Mr. Crystal will share some of that data. But again, we are always looking for ways to improve our practice and our way of work. Again, as superintendent, I value these workshops and this opportunity to hear from us in an informal setting to improve our practice. So without further ado, I'm gonna turn this presentation, the first part around code of conduct, to Mr. Josh Crystal. Well, first, Mr. Port, I think you wanted to.
Yeah, just a brief announcement, board members. We have a new sheriff in town and a new vice sheriff. So if you want to speak and to get into the queue, just let Ms. Vaughn know, and she'll keep a list, and then the chair will call on you.
All right. Your mic on.
All right. Start again, or we just go forth? This is the code of conduct that we have, and it is actually a tangible piece. It is online, and it is set for the families. This is actually a good time of the year to actually talk about the code of conduct, because we're going into the next 2 months of having meetings with the communities and partners in the schools about the revisions for the code of conduct. So it's a great time to talk about what it is, what's working, what's not working, so we can get ready for the 2024-25 school year. But this is available in English and Spanish. It's available to families. What it is it really sets the expectations, and that's what more is in the Code of Conduct. It's setting expectations for the families so they can read through and they can see what the schools expect, and we expect of the students and the families, and what they can expect from the school in return to help the students in their career. That's what we're going to do coming into the next meeting. The next meeting that we're going to have will be the middle of February, and that's where we bring everyone to talk about. We'll talk about, even if we're consequating behaviors in the same way, are we punishing too severely, or are we punishing maybe too light in other areas? And we get the buy-in and the feedback. So here's what we're seeing from the Code of Conduct, what we've seen in the last 2 years when we really look at the behavior. It's probably a good idea to dive right in. What we saw really, when you look at the 23-22 school year, skipping and non-attendance of classes are a big thing. And this is based on referrals, so referral rating. This is not based on out-of-school suspension. This is just the referral for if they were skipping or not. And we can see a big problem with students not going to class. It's not about necessarily a violent act. It's just getting them into class. So you'll see some of the schools, or some of the way we're working on, we're hyper-focused on high schools and middle schools of getting the students into class. So you can see where tardiness was one of the highest. It's dropping significantly. It's focused on getting these students into class where we can educate them. Many of the problems are happening inside the hallways, so we're working with the middle schools and high schools to get them in. It's been an overall reduction. The numbers are down. Things are starting to work. We're seeing improvements with the strategies. We're seeing specifically in the middle and high schools at the moment. And because of that, we'll see what it looks like in the elementary schools, where things are starting to spike a little bit. But you can see a lot of what we're dealing with are some of the more aggressive behaviors. So they're not seeing, like, it's kind of a misguided, because you see it about skipping class, but that's sort of more that high school, middle school. Some of these more disruptive behaviors we are seeing, and you'll see in the lower grades, where we really need to start focus on working on the social engineering with the students. Vape has become a serious issue. More so, it's very prevalent right now. It's how do you punish something that's like coming in like the way cigarettes did years ago? So it's educating students. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's still a lot of knowledge that we need on vape and how to deal with this. But when you look by grade level, what's happening? You can see like the number of incidents by grades where we have to focus. It's those earlier interventions. They're starting to get it in the higher grades. Once we started getting them into class, once we started moving them, we really need to start working on help these kids come into school right, into the earlier grades, so they could start working well, together. And here it is. This is the comparative between last year and this year. And you can see between elementary, middle, and high school, you can see our numbers are coming down in middle and high school. We've been getting into the schools. We work with discipline report cards. We created a discipline report cards. Twice a month, we're giving the schools status updates of where they are, where they can improve, how we can keep getting better throughout the school year in real time. But you can see, and when we look at the elementary, this is what's starting to happen, and you'll see those earlier grades. That's where we have to help and work with these students coming in. We know that there are struggles. We're past an epidemic and things had changed, but we're now in the focus and helping stage, and that's where we need to work on with these elementary school students. We're not going to give up on the high school, but what's working is working, and we're going to keep going through the year.
And Mr. Crystal, before I just took a quick pause, so I do want to give a shout out there. So if you look at, we've been very intentional, and I want to give Mr. Crystal a shout out as well. What we monitor is very important. Mr. Crystal came out this year with his report card, so every 2 weeks it's going out to our middle and high schools. We do have our regional superintendents that are here today, so as we get into some of the later conversation, we can really get into the way of work and the practice and what has been intentional about this reduction. We're talking about an overall 11% decrease from last year to this year in number of incidents that have occurred on our campuses. So we're an 11% decrease from from 22-23 to 23-24, and that's been the intentional work around progress monitoring. I do want to give a recognition to Mr. Crystal on the work he's done, along with the regional superintendents. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm sure I look forward to the conversation as we move through this. But I just wanted to stop there a minute, this 11% reduction in number of incidents did not occur by accident, because we were very intentional about having our students being in class. That's all the improvements we want to make as a district, all the gains we want to make starts with our students being in class. So this 11% reduction, I just wanted to take a moment, highlight Mr. Crystal and all the regional superintendents that are back here in their work. Thank you.
And no, I appreciate it. And then we can see that we just have to look at, as we dive into the data, where we can keep making improvements. One of the big topics that we always look at is bullying, and what are we doing with the bullying and harassment. When you look at by grade level where it's happening, they're getting to middle school. These happening and it's spiking in the middle school. So again, we go back to where those earlier interventions are before they get to the middle school. Historically, a lot of data wasn't in elementary school because they don't write referrals on kids all the time. And a lot of times they try and work it out. So it's harder to elicit the data, but when you see it spiking, that's when we know we have to connect with, we have to connect with those earlier grades. Is that not in the packet? Oh, slide number 7? Okay. Okay, I apologize. It should be in the packet if it was hidden. It is the bullying numbers. We can produce it and give it to you. But this is what we're looking at. These are specifically bullying, so I can explain it if it's not there. This is just, I pulled bullying incidents only, and by grade level. So you can see where we're having concerns with the middle school, 6, 7, and 8, especially at this stage of the game. That's where it's happening. When we talk about we're a district of middle schools at 6, 7, 8, we know our earlier interventions should be at the elementary schools. But middle school is where they come together. And so after they were all together in the elementary school for a while. Now they're all of a sudden learning to come together from all different areas, and that's the first step. So knowing that that's where they're going to first, connect with each other, that's really where we have to be, hyper focused on making sure they learn how to share space. This was an ask. I know that there was the ACLU letter that went out about the dress code. It was updated. It was vetted by our law team, and it's absolutely right now 100%. It is in the code of conduct, updated with the newest information and the newest verbiage. I guess there was concerns that it was towards gender clothing, but now this is exactly what it says, and this is our school board policy. So this is not the Florida statute. This is our own school board policy that was updated. The Florida State, the Florida State statute on dress code is a little bit a little bit more, a little almost harsher than the way we do it in our district. By the third time, if a student didn't wear what they were supposed to, they could lose after-school privileges for 30 days. Even on the second incident, it's about meeting with the principal and a principal meeting on dress code. So if we think about how many dress code incidents we'd have in principal meetings on dress code, we work a little differently with. So I mean, when you look at who's harsh, the Florida state statute is much harsher than what we do. We give more opportunities to work with students, and that's what you could see in the Code of Conduct, where we have a behavior matrix, and we give an expectation of what will happen if a student offends, what's going to happen if they offend more times, what will happen. And that is what we're going to turn over to. Grant Manager.
It's up to Matt, to the chair. I'm fine either way, however you guys would like. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
I might need to go back then.
Member Gray?
Big thanks to Mr. Crystal, Ms. Perez, and Ms. Wren, and our regional soups. So good to have this workshop. I felt like we needed to have a lot of explanation about what we need to do, what's the rationale, and, much more importantly, how are we moving forward, Superintendent Ayers, with such very, very prolific problems, cyberbullying, social media, cell phone, vaping, possible gun, containing weaponry. Those are some big issues. But I'm going to ask questions, and I only have a certain amount of time, so we'll just answer them. I'm on page 1, which is the beginning. District-wide severe discipline concerns. Have we had less? Remember, we had a change of placement. That's absolute suspension. Have we had less change? We call it now change of environments this year versus last year or the year before?
Yes, we are down. We are down more than 175. Yes, we are absolutely down.
So is the general consensus that we want to do everything we can to keep our students in school? Is that what we're...
That is correct. So as we looked at our change of environments, we are down 175 now year to date. We expect that number to be around 400 as we look to close the year and project out. Member Gray, we would expect around a 400 decrease in change of environment numbers from last year to this year. Correct, Josh? Am I right?
Yes, and also to say, those are just the number of hearings. That's not how many students are actually then moved. We move it's less than 40, it's about 60% of the students. So it's not even of those hearings, it's even less than that. So those are just the disciplinary hearings, just make sure we're...
Thanks, Joshua. The other question I have, and this is still supporting the first part of this workshop, discipline. The fighting has gotten to a point where it has gotten such folks as Marlene Salko from the Tampa Bay Times, where they're noting it. We have a lot of fighting. And a lot of the students are angry. They're coming to school. They're using their social media sites to organize. What are we doing about it?
So that's where a lot of what we're talking about in the next couple of pieces. We have a lot of groups that are working with the schools and how to work with the students about how to deal with these issues, who to report to. We have the availability for a school administration. So it's about notifying everyone what we can do first, but then being able to get to work with the students on what they do in the school system. We're working with each other from 7 Mindsets and some of the other programs you're going to hear about how to work with the students on more of that social learning.
Well,
Resiliency building.
and I understand the positive behavior PBIS, and Stacy, I'll ask you a question about that. We want to make sure we have interventions that keep students in school, and yet we have continual fighting. So I hope that is addressed. Stacy, you worked with PBIS, and I remember in 2016 we opened it up, and then 2018 we had it just about school-wide. What is happening with our 9th grade students on page 6? We have a tremendous high number of Hispanic and Black folks getting suspended. And we're talking about interventions, not suspended, but basically, yeah, there's a lot of data here that supports referrals are the highest, and it's hitting hard on the Hispanic and Black. When we did the PBIS, we wanted to hit the disproportionality of the Black students being suspended. So let me just ask you, is it working? And it has to be full fidelity, too.
Correct. I was going to say, with schools implementing with full fidelity, we can say that we are seeing improvements in reductions in referrals and suspensions, and I'll address that when we get to the PBIS section, like to talk about some of that. But recently, Raul and I transitioned to being in charge of PBIS, so it's really hard for us to speak about the last few years because we weren't thoroughly involved in it. But what we're seeing now is that definitely we're seeing the reduction. We are working closely with the high school regional superintendents and having these discussions. We're invited to the table with the school teams to talk not just about PBIS, but strategies and pieces of things that can be implemented to help reduce that. And we do discuss those numbers and bring that to light, starting with the step one of just creating that awareness.
Okay, and you know that PBIS does not work unless the school site is full fidelity. It just, falls apart. So my last question, and then I know I have to get back in the queue. There's a big punitive difference between hazing and bullying. Hazing dictates a suspension or first tier, whatever your language is, but bullying has more of a referral. Hazing, by definition, the second part of it, according to page 58, page 26 and 38, sorry, not 58, hazing has the same definition as bullying on the second sentence. So my question is, and maybe this is something we need to really be careful, if we're doing the same type of harassment behavior, and one is going to be, you're going to have to be suspended, and the other one, although the same, you're going to get a referral. I just want to mention that because I did a deep dive into all of the language. I would like to see that more uniform. Does that make sense, Joshua?
It does. The problem is 28 of these codes are from the state. They're the state definitions that we have to use from DOE. So the pliability that we have, it's up to its discretion. It's when you're doing an investigation in the incident. But of these bullying, what we're talking about, these are the state definitions by Florida State.
Okay, nonetheless,
DOE.
though, that's in the Student Code of Conduct.
You're not wrong. So what we try and do is give examples. If you look at some of the examples that we have in here and what it means, and bullying has been, unfortunately, one of those things that people have used it so frequently about every incident that's out there that it had actually got reduced for the way it was looked at in the schools. But if you look at harassment, it's really harassment and bullying. They're almost identical. It's harassment that's one time. Bullying, it's a repeated offense. So when we do look at it, it's like, how are they treating each other, right, with a code? So it would all generate a referral. It's just how severe.
Right, and hazing does generate a possible suspension.
Correct. They can warrant suspension. Everything could. It's like you have the ability to say, like, is this worthy of it? Is this keeping the student safe? And that's usually what suspensions are. No one, I think, believes suspensions cure anything. They just try and keep people at a distance from them while they can figure out what's going on.
Okay, got it. Member Vaughn and Member Perez, I'm going to go back in the queue. Got it. Thank you, Joshua.
Member Vaughn?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for this workshop and for all of this work. I appreciate it, especially the focus on keeping our kids in school as much as possible. I really appreciate our district's approach to that. I think it has a huge impact when we talk about academics. I had some questions just about the data to start with. On I think the second one, where we talk about district-wide severe discipline concerns. I notice on the 2023 chart we have physical attacks, but on the 2023 to 2024 attack we don't. Is there a reason why?
The DOE removed that code, so it was changed to simple battery.
Okay.
So that's why, yeah.
And then what does VCR stand for?
Violation of classroom rules.
Okay.
So that's where you're going to get more of your elementary situations happening. Yeah.
And under dispute, is that horseplay? Is that what the?
It is. It's
Okay.
just be a rough horseplay.
And that's a referral incident?
Generally, yeah. What you have is it's the dispute. It's like more of a low level where you're just talking about. It's more about. Referrals are really more about just identifying what a kid is doing. It's not to try and track them to punish them. It's like, hey, we have a student that keeps like getting into these little things, right? So if the corresponding punishment wasn't necessarily OSS, but it was like a guidance referral, it would feel a little different, right? But it's a situation where you see a kid with disputes. They keep getting into these little things, but it's not that high level of it's time for you to be removed from school.
So from my understanding, what you're saying is in an instance like that where it's not an offense to hurt a child or whatnot, if there was a student who kept getting referrals, you would refer them to guidance and see if there was some kind of coaching. Am I understanding that correctly?
Those are always options. There's all of the resources at the school to deal with a student behavior should be readily available.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then when we go, and we were talking to Member Gray's point, when we're talking about district-wide referrals by race, in general, I know that we're talking and identifying that while we're moving the numbers in a better direction in middle and high school, we're struggling in elementary school, right? I mean, you definitely highlighted that in your presentation, and we see that clearly here. What are the factors do you think are behind that, and what are we doing to address the elementary school? I know we say we have to focus on that, but what does that look like in elementary school to make sure that we're addressing the numbers in the same way we are in middle and high school?
Sure. When we talk about the social, I don't want to step on if we're going to talk about it, but we do have programs I do know like Second Step, and they're using a lot of programs to work with the students about the issues that they have to resolve problems. But there's a different group of people that implement inside the school these strategies.
So our approach is definitely focusing on the emotional aspect, the whole child. Those are our tools to dealing with these sort of incidences that we're seeing.
Getting them to work together, yes. I mean, I think that's the big thing, the big skill set of any time is, we're in a small space and how are we all going to work together?
And so, to Member Gray's point again, when we're talking about the discrepancy between our children of color and our other races of children, I mean, when you look at our Hispanic in middle school, it's double the amount of referrals as our Caucasian students, right? You look at our black students, it's almost triple. So I know that we're talking about it from PBIS to Member Gray's point, but what are we doing to make sure that our educators or administrators aren't carrying bias in, and that doesn't have to do with some of these referrals? Because I know as we erode our DEI programs in our schools, that gives us less tools to address that. So how are we able to address that piece of it while still staying in compliance with the state?
Well, two things. One, this report is not individual students. This is multiple referrals. So this can include a student that has 25, 30 referrals. Okay. So to connect to what we're doing is we're talking about the discipline report cards, and this is the first year we're implementing them, and we've been getting into the high schools and middle schools. We're starting top down, and we're working with the administration to show them. And they have examples, and I'll pass them out. You can see what we're talking about. They could see their numbers. What are they suspending? How are they suspending for? What is their racial breakdown of how they're doing it? So this is going out to schools every 2 weeks. So they're able to monitor, and it's constantly for progress monitoring purposes in front of them every 2 weeks, so they see what's going on.
And so to follow that up, if we have a report card going out where we have concerns that, again, those numbers aren't changing or there might be some bias, as a district, how do we address that? What does that look like? Do we talk with the administrator? Do we talk with the teachers? What are we allowed to do in regards to that?
Sure. Well, we have a team, and it's filled with great regional superintendents that are working with each of the schools to support each of the principals and deal with all of these things constantly. I mean, I'm going out every 2 weeks with these reports, but they're consistently out there with the high-need schools. What can we do? So there's constant supervision working with them to address these.
Yeah, if I could. I'm sorry.
Yes, no, please, Superintendent.
So as we look at across the board, if we look at elementary, middle, and high, we were very intentional beginning of the school year around middle and high school. That is majority of our discipline referrals. Middle was 21,000, high school 32,000. So majority of we were very intentional on progress monitoring on middle and high. We started to notice the issue here with elementary schools. That is going to be an area of focus for us.
I appreciate that.
But overall, if you look at the number of referrals, I mean, it's 5,000 elementary in comparison to 20 and 32,000 middle and high. So our intentionality was very clear around middle and high school and those reductions. And the work that we've done, that we put into place, we've seen tremendous results from the work of Mr. Crystal and our regional superintendents around reduction. Even if you go by race, if you look at, if we look at high school last year, Discipline referrals by race, if you look at black, 14,309. This year, year-to-date, same date, 11,762. So you're talking a significant 70% reduction just right there. And our intentionality around middle and high, noticing for me, those were our significant numbers of discipline referrals are at. So what was the biggest impact we can make was middle and high. Absolutely now looking at this data, and that's why, having this workshop, the timing of it, elementary is an area that we saw that slight uptick. So we've got a reduction in middle and high across the board, 10 to 17% middle and high, a slight uptick though in elementary, and in those kindergarten to third grade specifically behaviors. So this data is very eye-opening to us, with elementary, because that's we've got to start teaching the behaviors. That way, as we get to middle and high, we continue to see those reductions. But we were very intentional around middle and high and reductions across the board.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate this workshop, the transparency. I appreciate the intention around that, especially since we talked so much in the previous years about the school to prison pipeline. I just want to make sure that we're not just talking about it from a student lens. We are talking about it from the people who give out the referrals to make sure that they're supported and making sure that there's no bias going into that, because it's a multi-relational thing. It's student behavior and it's the people who are giving the referrals. So I want to know what we're doing about that piece of it. And these report cards, are they available to school board members? Are they available to the public? Like, what's the availability of these report cards?
Well,
Do you have
I have copies of them. I have them adjusted. One of the things that is on there is that every school gets students that have a high-flying list. So you have student ID numbers on there, and that's what I caution, because it'll say, like, for example, a student that has those 24, 25 referrals that are skewing your numbers, that is available on here, so that they can intentionally connect with those students specifically. So that is on there. I mean, the way it's available, yes. I mean, like,
They're available to school board members, but not to the general public.
No, not in that
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Okay.
But they're still, I mean, your numbers are still published by state, those state levels. But I think one of the important pieces that we have to look at is when we looked at all these report cards, especially middle and high school, the referrals weren't coming from the classroom. The majority were from everywhere outside of the classroom. Not everywhere. I mean, it was still happening in the classroom, but the majority of them were happening where there weren't eyes. You know, the least amount of people we have, hallways, bathrooms, behind the school, buses, wherever they're going to go. So that's what we have to retrain and look at administration, like how do we use less bodies and get more visual.
And I appreciate that, because as we go further, I want to talk about cameras outside and inside of the school. I have more questions about the dress code specifically, and how we're making sure that we're being equitable with that, with different body shapes and sizes, because that's a big concern that we hear from students directly. But I'm going to get back in the queue and allow my fellow board members to ask some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Member Washington?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, Josh, thank you, and Lydia and Stacy. You guys have done a good job with the presentation. But I have a couple of comments to make, being a former administrator. You know, we look down, the numbers of referrals is going down, but the consequence for the referrals is what we look at. Because if a kid skip class, the skipping may go down, but some kids skip class, it may get OSS. So it's so important to look at the consequences. And a lot of times we don't look at the consequences, we just look at the numbers. But the consequences is the most important, because that's the determination if you're in school or out of school. Very important. Something else I wanted to add. You know, we probably will never get into the right procedure because we got so many people in the school system who are inconsistent. The key is being consistent. Discipline is not consistent across the board. It's erratic across the board, because everybody has their own mindset, and no matter what we say here in the workshop, they have their own mindset what discipline is all about. When I walked down the hall of Chamberlain High School when I was a principal, I could have suspended hundreds of kids, because every time I walked down the hall, I heard profanity. It was profanities going on. So sometimes you have to use knowledge and just turn the eardrums off, because I've had many teachers that come in my office and say, well, he disrespected me. Okay, how did he disrespect me? Because he wouldn't look at me. That's not disrespect. Sometimes when I look at people, I be pissed off and I don't look at them. So at the end of the day, disrespect, all this comes into play how a person perceives. And I think that's what we need to work on, the perception of how people perceive discipline. A great example, another great example, schools are different. At Chamberlain, man, they skipped like mad. They had me and my administration going crazy running around skipping, Jim. When I got to Milton High School, it was more fighting going on. So you may look at this and say, oh, this is just, but that may be, they're different schools. And racism is live. And it's for real. It happens. I mean, people are biased. People think because you come from a certain area of town, you're going to have problems. That's human nature in some people. You know, coming from Belmont Heights, going in the other city. Oh, these kids from Belmont Heights, man, we got to watch them. But hell, you got kids from other part of the country or the city you got to watch too. So it's important for us, more so, I think, to work on dealing with the mindset of people in the school district. Because we set policies and procedures. Hey, we got policies and procedures in place. We just don't carry them out the right way. Some classroom you could stand up and talk in other classroom you get the VCR. Because people don't, I don't want them talking in my class. But the kids go to another class, they can talk. So that's inconsistent. And that's what makes a kid sometimes be inconsistent. Because you can't, one thing about being a student, about students, you got to keep them consistent. You can't do one thing in one classroom, when you go to the next classroom, you do something different. Because kids don't operate like that. I was a kid. We all in here were kids. I wasn't a great kid. I used to act up in school too. But I knew the classes not to act up in, and the teachers that loved me and cared about me. So it's so important for us. We can do all this we want to, and I am 100% loving it because the numbers are going down. Because we're getting beat up like hell on these numbers. We're getting beat up because everybody's looking at the numbers. We're getting beat up. But the one thing we are doing now, Josh, and I appreciate it, and all of us, the numbers are going down, but we got to look at the consequences. Okay, you get 10 days at this school for skipping, but the next time at another school you don't get 10 days. So the key there is consistent. I just wanted to add my little 2 cents in because I think it's important.
Oh, no, I agree. I think that's what you'll see. One of the report cards is it tells the school exactly what they're suspending for. It gives them anything that's a suspendable offense and what they have done so they can actually see. And I think a lot of times people might not know they're doing it. A lot of times it's unintentional. I think, we have to look at these administrators with the best lenses. Do they know what they're doing? And I think when they start seeing what's happening, the data, they might not realize it. And then this is about correcting their behavior too at the same time. We're teaching everyone simultaneously.
Yeah, and I'll be finished in a minute. But I'm preaching today a little bit. I remember when I was the APA at Brandon High School, and we looked at areas from where kids came from. When we saw, man, them kids, we got a lot of kids coming from Ybor City. Man, we got to watch those kids. We got a lot of kids coming from McLean. We got to watch them because, they real bad at McLean. That's the perception that we still have in some cases. Don't look at the environment. You got to take every kid individually as being a kid and not look at where they came from and not look at their family. It's like we had a family, them kids came, they were pretty rough though. And we knew the names. And we said, oh man, this family here again with that name, we recall the names. Automatically now we are being biased and not even thinking about it. Because we'll think about the kids' names, where the kids came from, and what school they came from. So we need to work on that. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was preaching a little bit this morning. Okay.
You're good, Member Washington. Member Rund.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Can I have a little bit of clarification? Member Gray had mentioned something about suspensions and referrals. I don't see any data on suspensions here. I believe it's all referrals.
We have the suspension data to give out. We have it at mid-year, but we were talking about referrals. But we do have suspension data, which actually is also down as well. We have all of the numbers of suspensions are down. We can produce those today. They are all the same. They're all down.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Yes.
I didn't see any suspension.
Right, no,
data. I just
we're working
saw-
on, individual students, sorry about that.
That's
We'll
okay.
add that in.
The one thing that I definitely want to make sure that we also address is, our environment as Hillsborough County is changing. And so I think that these numbers are still of concern because of the environment and where we're changing, but the demographic of the entire county is changing. And so I think that even brings it more to our awareness if we want to pay attention to how this is. I'm thankful that you're doing it school by school and keeping administrators abreast about exactly what's happening within their school, because I think sometimes we assume things, just like Member Washington was saying, there's a perception of we've got so many things or this many this, but when the data really comes in, we then see the facts. We actually see what's happening and with who and with how many. And I think that that's also opening up an eye-opening experience that it's a very small amount of kids that's causing quite a bit referrals. And so giving our district the opportunity through our different systems to really be addressing the individual situations. And I think that's important that as we move forward, we look at that big picture. Because I know that the other part of that is, and where the elementary school comes in is, last year I had asked for a 5-year for a couple different schools where we were looking at the boundary issues. And I had parents that were complaining about one school to the other school about what they believe is perceived to be fighting here or there. And so I asked about a 5-year backlog of those schools and where we saw the data. There was a significant shift in the data as soon as COVID hit. And that year we came back in 2021, we all of a sudden had a huge uptake in all of our behaviors. And if we were honest with ourselves, that behavior wasn't just in our schools, but it was in our environment. It was in our community. We see a huge change in our employment statuses, right? People aren't staying long-term at jobs. People are looking at jobs differently. People are looking at what their expectations are in the community. And so I think that we have to recognize the fact that this is year 4 now, right? We were in 2021, 21, 22, 22, 23. We're now in year 4. Last year, being the first year, we were really more of an open schools where our activities came back, our environments changed, we were more welcoming in our schools. And this year, I would say we're the most normal we've been since COVID, inviting our families back into our schools at a more rapid pace, inviting that. So I think we have to look at a holistic approach as we move forward to recognize that that uptick in our data over the course of the last 3 years is very significant to what our country experienced. And it's not just because our schools weren't doing what they were supposed to do. We are all experienced a change. And so that is a huge aspect of it. But I do look forward to understanding more of the procedural part about it and how we look at different individual situations, because I think that's critically important, that we're not just making a rapid judgment for an individual when we really have to look at the whole picture. And I think that I would like to see more of that as we move forward of what we're doing to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rendon. Member Hahn?
Thank you, Member Perez. I appreciate Member Washington's comments because it really shines a light on teacher perspectives around behavior. And, competence around classroom management and student behavior really is one of the biggest indicators of teacher turnover. And we know that teacher stability is a huge factor, probably a huge factor in student achievement. So, it can really make or break a teacher and their longevity. And the way we alternatively certify teachers these days, where, it's very different than some of us became a teacher years ago, 30 years ago. It was a very traditional pathway. We had multiple courses on classroom management and behavior and multiple opportunities to practice those in a classroom through practicum and internships. And now we're certifying teachers really quick and dirty, right? You take 5 courses, 1 is in classroom management and behavior, and typically they go into our Title I schools because that's where they're needed. And they're not really prepared. They're not prepared. So what happens after maybe a year, maybe 2 or 3, if they last that long, they leave the profession. So it's huge when we're talking about stability of teacher workforce, this issue. And I'm glad you brought it up. It might be interesting when we think about providing professional development, especially to teachers who are alternatively certified. but it might be interesting to look at teacher perspectives around some of how they perceive different behaviors, much like you were talking about, Member Washington. And that might be a good starting point as to where we need to start developing teacher professional development around classroom management. What are their perceptions of these behaviors? How do they perceive bullying, harassment, all those things, to see where is the gap and how we're making sure we're all on the same page, as you said. It's hard in a district this large, but this has a huge impact on student achievement in regard to teacher development. I'm a big believer in that, in how we're preparing teachers right now, fast, quickly, is really deprofessionalizing the teaching profession. So I'm not a fan of it, and I think that, and there are some great teachers who are alternatively certified. I have a really hard time with that word today. But they've probably done a lot of professional development on their own to get to that level. And, some people need more professional development than others, so I think that's just something to consider. I have a question on the physical attack category. I know Member Vaughn asked about this, and you said that the state now calls it simple battery, but where are we tracking that in 23-24?
These are just the top 10. They're still there, but we've had less of them.
Okay.
So these are just the highest numbers.
Okay.
So the good news
So that's
is,
gone
even though
down?
it is simple battery, that is still a very low number now as well.
So it's gone down more than any of these other numbers.
Yes, it has. Yes, these are still, yes, correct.
So what is the disciplinary action on physical attack?
So it could be anything, and it depends what the level is. And unfortunately, sometimes it can get into
Someone
the
punches
police.
a teacher.
So,
What happens?
okay, there's definitely a lot, I guess, that would go into, we have to find out.
There's
If it's
no
a
zero
student with
tolerance.
disabilities, well, if it's a student with disabilities, we have to find out a lot of what's going on about the whole situation. I think, I would, if it was just so cut and dry, we wouldn't have the discussions that we do. That's the thing, is we have to look at every single event. Obviously, if a kid puts their hands on a teacher, it's very, very serious. But there's a lot of factors that go into place: where, when, how did it happen, what was involved in the time. I mean, there's more details. I can give you more.
Right, okay. So everything has a lot of nuance, is what you're saying. So on this list, where is drugs captured? Like, I'm curious.
It's lower. We have all of them, but it's much
Yeah.
lower on the list. These were like the
Well,
top severe concerns.
Are you seeing an increase, a decrease, I'm
We're
just
we're seeing definitely drugs have gone down. It's the vape that we have seen go through the roof. It's vape.
And oftentimes people are putting drugs in their vape.
Well, there's some confusion because it'll say if it is or it isn't, and then the police have to test it or it doesn't. So there's so much ambiguity in there right now. We're trying to learn what to do. We're working with all the different districts. What are they doing? A lot of education.
Drugs in general, where is that in?
Oh, we can give you the breakdown of all of them. It's a state reported code. So we can give you all the codes.
Do you know if you're seeing a rise in it or if it's going down?
Drugs, no, we are seeing it's vape. If the vape is THC vape, so then it is treated like drugs. So that portion is going up. They haven't really delineated between the two because it's so confusing.
What if it's not in a vape and they bring drugs on campus? What happens?
That is something as well. We have the police get involved. It depends on the amount that's brought in. Can we connect with services? Has the kid been involved before? That's even on progressive discipline. That's why we treat it like where it is, how much, what's going on. The edible issue is becoming a little bit more prevalent. So when we talk about drugs, it's like, well, we have these gummy candies that are they're making their way around. So it's a challenge keeping up with the. Yeah.
And Dr. Hahn, I do have just those numbers. So drug possession last year was 428. Drug possession year to date today is 308. So 308 is the drug possession number. You had asked about simple battery. That number is 471. So the physical assault of 1015 reverts to a 471 for this 23-24.
But one of the things I think is important, and Mr. Crystal's mentioned this, but and he said it several times, these are the top 10, I guess. How many state coded offenses are there? How many are there?
28 state, and then we have ours. There's about roughly there are 50 codes.
50 codes. And so what board members, you're saying the top 10, but I think you have the other information is available, right? If they want to
Absolutely,
see
yes.
it.
That's what he's reading off of that list, yes.
And it might be helpful at some point so they see what those top codes, what the codes are, what they mean.
Absolutely, yes. It'll be every one that you see in the matrix has a corresponding code.
In regard to the dress code, how do we not have to adhere to state statute? Because typically with everything else, our policies are reflective of state statute, so.
It can, but there are some of those that depending on where you are and what, that's all site-specific, and it's not about the punishment. I think that's more of it. It's like you could be backed up, but is that the best for community relations, like the making?
No, I'm not asking about, I'm just asking
why is
about, why do we not have to adhere to state statute around that particular issue, but yet all of our other policies we do?
Well, I think we take every consideration involved. Like dress code is one of those designs. Like if a kid just wore something inappropriate and they weren't even sure, versus a kid who's intentionally doing something to cause a disruption on a campus. And I think that it gives us that. What are we calling it? And that's what happens. Is it really a disruption? Then we go that far. But is it something we can correct by just talking to them? Kind of like what Board Member Washington was talking about. Like, hey, is there a reason? Like, just
No, I'm not really asking about the disciplinary action. Maybe my question would be directed
yeah.
to Mr.
So
Porter.
basically,
How
the-
do we
yeah,
not have to-
The Florida statute requires that we have a code of conduct.
Okay.
And we have a dress code policy that, as you can see, is very, very broad. The details are in the student code of conduct. So we have to adopt a student code of conduct. Within that, we are allowed to do our own guidelines with it. So the discipline that follows comes from our code of conduct that we adopt, and that's consistent with the statute. So the statute requires we have a student code of conduct. The meat and potatoes of the dress code are embedded in that student code of conduct, as well as the discipline.
So what it says in 1006.07, those 3 bullet points, we don't have to have that reflected in our policy, even though it's in state statute?
So we have to look, if you look at 1006.07, Code of Student Conduct at subsection 2, adopt a code of student conduct for elementary, blah, 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 blah. So we do that, and then we have the flexibility within that to have our own discipline. So that's where the consistency comes into play.
Okay. I guess I've got my updates late, but I don't see that, what you just read on this.
Let's see, it's in your backup. It's
Okay.
Page 8.
Yeah, I'm on 8.
It's the tab that says SS 1006.07.
Yeah, I have that here. Okay. Yeah, I guess I was just looking at this Florida statute 100607, and it had these 3 bullet points.
You have to look at the whole statute.
Yeah, okay. I'll
I'd
do
be happy
that.
to talk to you. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you
I'll
about
go look
that.
at that. One last question about the bullying and hotline. About how many people utilize that a month? Are you finding that people are utilizing that? Because I know we all get a lot of emails because we're all copied on them from parents. Most of it is around bullying and harassment. So are people utilizing that hotline? And if not, maybe we need to let more people know it exists. I don't know.
Oh, it is run through my office. We are seeing it's a steady number. We are using it. It comes through. As far as it's spiking, it's been around the same way it was last year. There's about 5 to 10 a week come through that start an investigation. I don't disagree to get more signage out there, and it's on their websites as well.
Yeah, I just was curious because we get a lot of emails, and a lot of the behavior issues are around bullying and harassment. So, okay, thank you.
And just follow up to that dress code. So as we look at incidents 22-23 to 23-24, we see a decrease across the board except for dress code. So dress code is one that we've seen an increase in the number of incidents, which create discipline referrals and then consequences. So dress code is one area that's a central focus for us. As we've seen decreases, Dr. Hahn, dress code is one that's jumped up for incident referrals this year.
And just a request, could you send me the numbers on absenteeism?
Yeah.
Thank you. Because obviously, I'm just curious to see how they're, maybe over the last 2 or 3 years, have they been ebbing and flowing?
And Dr. Hahn, just overall attendance rate for the district, not attendance due to disciplinary action, correct? Just overall
Correct.
attendance.
Just overall attendance,
Got it.
yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Member Hahn. Member Combs?
Thank you, Member Perez. I thank you, all the board members who, have given input. I agree with the majority of what people are saying. And thank you and your team for putting together so much information. I think when you look at COVID and mental health and just families working multiple jobs, I think things in general in society are changing. And I think you're seeing increase in crime, increase in homelessness. I see that even driving around. I see an increase overall. Just a couple things, more solutions or ideas. I think the most important thing is the principal at the school, especially at some of those higher challenging schools, to make sure we have enough leadership there or enough support there, additional support that's needed. Like I know that one of my schools now, one of my largest schools, there's there's a vacancy for an AP. So we have to really make sure those additional supports are there, because working with the community and those students getting along with those administrators can change everything. So having the right leader at the right school is so important, and putting that additional support. I know that there's been a lot of cuts, but I think we have to look at different schools where there are high measures of issues and what we can do to provide more administration for that. And also, really, as Member Hahn said, talk about classroom management. I think that is the most important thing, positive behavior, but also teaching our teachers, when we do the principal summary or summer institute, it really needs to focus on classroom management and procedures. I have worked in Title I schools and non-Title I schools. I think classroom management is the most important thing for teachers, and using those positive behavior. And I know we're going to talk about that. And finally, mentors. Like when, Mr. Owen came in, and we have hundreds of mentoring programs, and getting them all on the same page and bringing our community in for kids who are maybe reoccurring. I know you and I spoke, and we talked about that 8% of the students are doing the right thing, right? Almost 98%. There's a very small percentage of students who are doing those reoccurring problems. I also think we have to remember that 98% of those kids are also trying to learn. So when there's disruptive behavior over and over in a classroom, that can impact students, impact their learning, impact their opportunities to go to college, impact a lot of different things. So really focusing, going out to those homes. I know when I taught, we went out to the homes, met the families, connected, trying to make sure we have those social workers and those counselors who can go out and connect. I know that Dr. Gordon at Hillsborough High School last year, throughout the whole summer, they went out and met. They found out the students who had reoccurring issues that were coming in, went out to the communities, went out to the families and met them, and those students are more likely to be successful. So I think although we're trending the right way, we always have to do better. The goal is to keep students in school. Like if you see incidents that have occurred in our community, a lot of the times those students weren't going to school, or they were kind of lost. And so when they don't have a place to go to every time, what happens? They make bad decisions. So, and a couple things that I just want to share that I think are simple solutions that can help our county. I really think we need to look at cell phones and really, truly, get rid of cell phones in the classroom. I've seen so many fights recently that have been passed down, and like in a bathroom, if somebody's videotaping you in your bathroom, the fight is going to be completely different than if nobody's videotaping you and you're not trying to upload that for likes. I saw a fight the other day where the girl was having convulsions, and everyone stood around to videotape instead of going down to see that person. So I look at Webb Middle School that has really cut down on cell phones, nowhere, not even to the bathroom, and you are seeing less fights outside the community, you're seeing less absenteeism, you're seeing less attendance issues, and you're seeing kids communicate with one another, which is really important, because when they communicate, they're kinder to each other. Number two is, when we look at these half days, and I don't want to ask you now, but are there more absences on Mondays and Fridays? I look at Pasco County that's coming up with some longer weekends. Are those half days really worth it? Or should we have an extra full Friday off for kids, because there are kids who are working more in the community, who have to help their parents? I mean, is that going to help our absenteeism and tardiness? Because I'd like to look at solutions. I'd like to see, is there a trend? I mean, I was at a school yesterday and a child walked in and they were like, oh, I forgot it was half day. I wouldn't have come. You know what I mean? So they thought the day's kind of short. And can we look at that trend and see, should we have longer weekends, and will that help our attendance, and will that help our absenteeism? And finally, one of the things I think when you look at that elementary especially, I think often students maybe they're special needs or they have behavior issues. And it's not going to happen all the time, but when we're seeing the same child have reoccurring issues, it's maybe because they're not placed in the right position. So I think somewhere in our ESE forms, there should be a place where we can expedite it. Because I think when I've gone out to my schools, sometimes I see a child who has had problems for weeks and weeks, and the teachers are supervising them or whatever, and they're taking turns, but it takes so long. It doesn't happen every year. Every school's not going to have that, but sometimes there's a child, and going through the process of the observance and going through the ESE process takes so long. I think there has to be an expedited for that child and also for the school, because I was at a school where the child, kind of attacked the teacher, but they still had to keep working, and then they suspended them, and then the parent had to pick them up early, and sometimes it takes so long, and I understand that we're short of ESE teachers, but we've got to have a process when we know that child is in the wrong place or they need some more support, that they have an expedited, process for that. So those are just some of the things that I think could help, or looking at that trend. I appreciate it. I know it's a really challenging issue. We want to keep our students in school, but we also have to keep our students safe as well. So thank you.
Just a quick follow-up. So around attendance, and we'll be sure that when we get this information out to Dr. Hahn and the whole board, Monday and Friday are for us attendance. Those are our percentages are lower on Monday and Friday, but actually more kids in the school on Friday than Monday. And we'll get all the data out to the board. But Monday and Friday, our attendance rate is lower on those days. Friday is lower attendance rate than the Monday early release. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Member Combs. I want to ask about this tardiness, because many of our buses, and I'm going to say this, especially in some of our underserved neighborhoods, do not show up. And some of those children, their parents have called me and said, hey, it's 10 o'clock and my child is still, along with a group of students, still waiting for the bus. And I've had to call and get a bus out there to pick up those students. So this tardiness number, does that include those students that a bus doesn't show up for?
It shouldn't. Generally what happens is a policy when that happens at a school and they announce it, they'll announce to the teacher we have a late bus and to accept these students, and then they wait. Sometimes it's even longer to get them a pass, but they should not be included, no.
So you're saying they should not. So I'm going to ask that you look at that number, because the parents have called me and let me know that there's tardies on their children's records that should not be on there. So, throughout this nation, we've had reports that there is a mental health crisis for a reason. To Member Bond's point, diversity, equity, and inclusion. How are we finding a way to educate our teachers regarding this space?
So, and actually, we're going to get into that in the latter part of the presentation. Ms. Perez will go into our threat management around our youth mental health first aid training that all of our, at least we have to have at least 80% of our faculty go through that training. And part in that training, which we'll get into in a little bit, that's how we go and educate. But I think a lot of the reductions that we've seen from last year to this year has gone into the training and make our teachers aware of that.
Okay. And then to Member Rendon's point regarding COVID, a lot of our families, there was a lot of breaking up of families during COVID, a high number. And our children were caught in the middle of these breakup of families. So now you have them returning to school now in two separate households and having to learn to navigate that system. And this happened in the midst of COVID. So from a mental health lens, the message, when I'm looking at page 1, let me go to page 5, in our lower grades, pre-K, I'm going to tell you, I'm flabbergasted. I'm just, that we're even disciplining pre-K students instead of, modifying their behavior. Like I was saying, through the lens of mental health, what the message that they receive when we're conducting, because a teacher, what they do is modification of behavior in the classroom. And what they learn is that if a preschooler or a kindergartner wants to go home, then what they learn is I misbehave, and then I can go home. And then that starts from pre-K and kindergarten, and when we're preparing them for life, what happens is we prepare them from pre-K to kindergarten to learn to misbehave, and then we send them home instead of keeping them in school. Okay? So this is the fail of this system for our children. Okay? And from page 6, I'm looking at these numbers. The Black, Hispanic, and multiracial, we had 54,049 during 22-23, and 23-24 we had 48. That's still unacceptable. Unacceptable. I don't care if it was one child that was sent home 48,000 times. That number is still unacceptable.
Yeah, and just a clarification, so that 48,000, that on page 6, those are referrals, that those may not necessarily result in an out-of-school suspension. So it could be, I mean, that's just a referral in our system by ethnicity, but it may not necessarily reflect that the student was put out of school.
But the number of referrals being handed to our children of color is unacceptable. How do we redirect their behavior in this county? Have we looked and compared to at least the 3 top districts in the state of Florida to see what they're doing and what their numbers are? And if we could do that, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we need to move on. I know 2 board members had comments, but it's already 11:01, and we need to move on with okay? All right, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next part. So Ms. Perez with threat management, and then Ms. Wren with our PBIS system.
Okay. Before I, is this on?
Okay, you do.
Before I go into threat management, I do want to briefly touch on that continuing education for our district staff. So since 2018-2019 school year, we've trained over 23,000 employees in youth mental health first aid. And that's a public education program, and it teaches participants how to recognize those signs and symptoms of a mental health challenge. It's important that we teach in that course an understanding of the importance of early intervention. It also teaches individuals on how to help an adolescent, right, and connect them to that appropriate support. During that course, we also teach employees how to de-escalate situations, whether it's in a crisis or non-crisis situation. An important component of youth mental health first aid is providing training on differentiating between signs and symptoms of typical adolescent behavior and those that may be struggling with a mental health issue. It's also important to note that although behavior and mental health sometimes overlap, not all behaviors are indicative of a mental health issue. We currently have 85 active youth mental health first aid trainers. We provide training on an ongoing basis in person and virtually, and we provide the training in English and in Spanish for our monolingual staff members. Our district is required, like the superintendent mentioned, to maintain that 80% for specific job codes, and right now we're above that number. Okay. Sorry. So I'm going to move on into threat management. So as you may be aware, the Department of Education's Safe School developed the Florida Harm Prevention and Threat Management Model. We call it the Florida Model for short. This went into effect in all public and charter schools on January 1st. The goal of this new process is designed to identify those concerning or threatening behaviors at the earliest stage possible. And this is what we have been training our staff in order to provide appropriate interventions and strategies for those students. Okay. Each school had to assign a core team, and that's a team of multidisciplinary team, and it's comprised of 4 members with expertise in mental health, instruction, law enforcement, and a school administrator. All of these team members have been trained in the new Florida model. One of the new things with this Florida model is part of that team, we need to have someone who is familiar with that student, who has personal knowledge of that student. And that's best practice. When we're looking at a student, we want to know what the baseline behavior is for that student so that we can provide interventions correctly. Many of the districts, well, all of the districts in Florida had to be trained, 100% core teams trained by the end of December, which we made that goal. And we had 1,795 individuals trained in the day 1 component. Administrators and those chairs on those teams had to receive a day 2 of training, and we trained over 900 individuals in that day 2. So what you see here is how to access services at schools. And this is also posted on our website. So as you know, at our schools, they're staffed with student services members. We have school counselors, school psychologists, school social workers. And students can self-refer. They can be referred by family members, by peers, or by other staff members. And the student services team member will assess the situation so that they can determine the level of supports that that individual needs. And that can be anywhere from one-on-one supports with someone on the student services team. It can be counseling. It can be peer mediation. Through our district's mental health plan, we have district clinicians that collaborate with school teams. They work really closely with our families and community stakeholders to help link those families to mental health supports. In our schools, in over 120 of our schools, we have mental health therapists assigned. They're all licensed individuals assigned to those schools to help and provide those services there on campus. And as you may know, we are contracted with Central Florida Behavioral Health. They're a managing entity, and we partner with over 8 different community agencies so that schools can access those supports.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll move on to Ms. Wren.
All right, so we'll move on to PBIS, which is the shortened word for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. I'm Stacy Wren. I work in the Title I office and support Tier 1 for behavior, along with my coordinator, Raul. Back there, Raul. PBIS, actually, with a lot of your concerns that you brought up as you're talking about classroom management and implicit bias, PBIS is a really strong framework for addressing some of those key concerns. Shake had mentioned consistency, and one of the things that we really focus on is schools consistently implementing their plan that they have put into place. They standardize expectations, which potentially and hopefully eliminate any implicit bias. They clearly define the behaviors that they expect to see, and they train their faculty on how to identify those behaviors, intervene with those behaviors, and an intervention can be a positive reinforcer or a different strategy within the classroom. So it is comprehensive. Just to kind of clarify any misconception, PBIS isn't just we have a store and we hand out bucks or points and have parties. It's a 10 critical element component framework. It's very data-driven, team-driven, and as you can see, we've got 67 active schools in the district. Active means they've been trained formally by USF PBIS in the last 5 years, and that they regularly upload data points One of the data points that they uploaded for this year is their PBIS implementation checklist, which we had the highest response rate ever at 77.61%. And those were from the school teams. And what they did is they self-assessed how they're doing so far with implementing PBIS. That was due December 1st, so they had a first semester to kind of gauge how they're doing and what's working and what they need to focus on moving forward. You can see our breakdown of the different age groups of their schools. Our highest increase we've had is actually in high school, and as we've talked about, decrease in numbers in high school and middle school. Our high schools traditionally didn't participate. They thought it was kind of an elementary thing. But with our work with the climate and culture resource teachers, a lot of them started to see the benefit of having a structured framework on campus to help them do their work with Tier 1 behavior on campus. We also talked about administration. Somebody had mentioned administration. Principals are required to attend the training when the school goes through the training, and an administrator is required to sit on the team. While they might not be leading the team, they're part of that conversation. The team does bring their discipline data, and they look at monitoring that data to see how their implementation is working and if they need to shift the sails or change their plan. There's a huge data component, and those team PBIS meetings should always have a standardized discussion point on their agenda regarding data. So the active schools, with the support of Raul and I, they have a point of contact at every school. Some schools have 2 points of contact. We have PLCs throughout the year where we talk about data disaggregation, we talk about teaming structures, we work with USF PBIS. Dr. Lauren Ivanovich is a technical assistant who comes and also facilitates the meetings with us and provides technical assistance around data disaggregation. And tons of interventions. When we hit the wall, she's got a plethora of resources for us to use. We have office hours. They can tap into us and check and do pulse checks with us, and we can help guide in the right direction. We also do one-on-one coaching. We'll go out to their team meetings and sit with their teams, help them look at the data, make decisions, talk about interventions. We do Tier 1 walkthroughs on the campus, so we'll go through and look at the fidelity of implementation, give them non-evaluative feedback just to see where they could focus to improve their practice or improve fidelity. We set up a Teams portal with a ton of resources in combination with USF PBIS, as well as the resources that they share with each other. It's a very PLC teaming structure. We do help them structure their team. We meet often with administrators to say who should be on my team, what does the team look like, how often should they meet, and we also talk about merging them with other teams, like their PSLT, and then choose an agenda item just to focus specifically around behavior. And then we do address disproportionality when we discuss with the team. We work hand in hand with CCIS, which is also led by USF PBIS. So we have a nice marriage there. And those schools that are identified as CCIS that are PBIS trained, or we help design some structures in place for that PBIS training. And we also support them with developing their Tier 1 behavior plan, which is designed and structured around the technical elements of PBIS. And again, they get that huge support with interventions as well when they are struggling to come up with what's next. So what's next for PBIS coming up? We have 5 summer 2024 PBIS trainings already scheduled. 4 of them are full 18-hour trainings to retrain a team or develop a new team for the school, and then one booster, which is just that refresh for a team who just needs a little reminder of their practices. We are continuing to collaborate with the CCEIS schools and potentially move forward with having all CCEIS schools PBIS trained. We are increasing the data awareness of the PBIS schools. Our last point of contact meeting was actually pretty data heavy of discussion, which shifted from the past where they were more talking about their parties and their reinforcers. Now they're looking more at the data and making data-driven decisions, which again is the intention of PBIS. Our goal is to increase the number of PBIS trained schools. In 2019, we had 95 schools. When Raul and I took over again this year, there were 38, and then we trained a bunch this summer, so we're up to 67. But it's a strong again, framework and tier 1 establishment on that campus that answers a lot of these questions, reducing behaviors and suspensions. It gives the school the strategy they need, and they look at that data regularly to address that. Our goal, again, is to increase the number of schools with tier 1 behavior plans. We'd really love schools to sit down and develop that tier 1 behavior plan, think of the procedures that need to be in place, think of the consequences, positive and negative consequences, develop that. As far as support for teachers, I firmly believe teachers leave because they don't feel supported, and a solid plan in place gives them that support. When they see the plan and they're trained on the plan and the schools follow the plan with fidelity, that provides the support that they need. So we're really pushing that tier 1 plan to work with the schools, and then we will increase the number of model schools. Model schools are schools that implement PBIS. They apply some of the data components working with USS PBIS, and they show a decrease in suspensions, referrals, and disproportionality, and they earn that model status. So this past school year, 22-23, we had 4 schools that got model school status, 2 bronze, 2 silver, but it goes all the way up to platinum, and platinum is that tier 3 level that they truly reduced disproportionate practices on campus. That's all I have. I talk really fast, but I'm sure you have questions.
Yeah, that concludes all of our presentation. I just want to thank Josh, Lily, and Stacy for that. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have, I look forward to the next, whatever time we want to, talk through some of this, and I encourage any feedback that the board has from me and my team. I do have regional superintendents here as well. If you want to hear some of the boots on the ground and what's happening, to get to this point and the reductions we've had. So I do have my regional superintendents here as well. So look forward to the conversation. But I would just add, even to Mr. Washington's comments earlier, it comes down to consistency, right? So if you look, this student code of conduct is approved by the board every year. It will go, so Mr. Crystal, over the next few months, February to around April, we'll have several. Mr. Crystal, if you could real quick talk about February to April, what happens with our student code of conduct, because it's important that I think that our community hears that around our student code of conduct, but it comes back to after we have the student code of conduct, we have our behavior matrix, which is in there, but it still comes back to having that code of conduct, our behavior matrix, but what are the consistencies across our entire school district in following our behavior matrix? So, Mr. Crystal, if you could just highlight real quick, and then we'll open it up.
Sure. The code of conduct, we'll have it. We have an introductory meeting. We bring everyone in, talk about the new policies. It's everyone from the community, school members. We have a list. We try to add on all the time. We're trying to keep reaching out to bring more people in. We look at it holistically, everything from the new policies that are coming in from the state guidelines, the federal guidelines, and then also, like I mentioned a little earlier, are we doing the right things by kids? And we talk about them. Is this worthy? There are some places, even families that want a suspension, right? Whereas there are other families that don't. So getting us all to talk about it and what makes it fair and equitable is every opportunity. So we do it, and then the second one, we come back with the revisions. Everyone submits what they're different. It's sectioned out. Everyone submits their different sections where they, will vet them, and then we produce the new one in front of everyone, make sure it's set, and then we bring it before the board for voting. So it's a series of 3 to 4 meetings, depending on how much added information is in there.
So we have our student code of conduct within it as behavior matrix, so we'll work through that over the next couple of months. Of course, it'll come to the board for approval, but really when it comes down to the day-to-day practice, know that, majority of our incident referrals are middle and high school, as you can see by the numbers. We have 2 regional superintendents in high school. Mr. Nelson is here. Also, Mr. Brady is our other regional superintendent. We have Shelley and Johan back there as well, our regional superintendents for middle school. So that gets back to, from my level, it's the consistency and that practice that's happening at the school level with our regional superintendents. So we have 2 regional superintendents for middle and high as we look for consistency. But I just appreciate, my team, everyone for the presentation today, and look forward to discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Ayers. Member Gray?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you again, wonderful team. Just as an individual school board member, I'm just going to make some recommendations, and then I'll get into about 4 questions, and they'll be very specific. My recommendation is when we talk about bias, which Sheikh, you mentioned is very true. There are perceptional let's just say, summations of certain areas, certain schools. I recommend to go back to what we used to have, implicit bias workshops, so this can be discussed and worked through with community and staff and school board members. And we did this, what was it, right before COVID. Next, the consistency issue. 40% of our principals are new, and quite frankly, they don't have any uniformity yet. Inclusive is PBIS. I would also recommend, and I know this has been mentioned before, that the new principal have such a workshop as what we're doing right now. In other words, get them on the same page, even if we have to segregate the principals separately, but make sure they have the common language. PBIS does not work unless the common language is had throughout the school and throughout the elementary level, throughout the middle school level, and high school level. I recommend also, and this is Dr. Hahn's point, and I'm going back to the teacher and principals, how prepared are they with the discipline expectations? How can we do better getting them prepared for the hard realities that many of these new teachers face? And for that matter, Kelly Services also. And I would suggest we have to double down on that PD, because they are the barrier between what could be one small referral versus an expulsion and that kind of thing, because we want to keep the kids in school. Nadia Combs, you mentioned cell phones. As an individual school board member, and I've seen Greco and I've seen Ballast Point Elementary, and those schools have taken the cell phones out of the classrooms, out of the hallways. I recommend that very strongly. And every case, even with the one that you mentioned, Member Combs, and I can't remember, what school was that again? Webb. Their disruptions were lower, referrals were lower, and there's data to prove that. So that, and I'm saying that as an individual school board member. Next, Member Perez, I absolutely agree that when we have mental health training, it has to include trauma-based training. Right now, the Children's Board gave $1.3 million to 2 schools out of 240-something schools. So to make teachers aware of what type of student do they have in front of them. And many of our students from COVID, Member Rendon, you're absolutely, they're not really fine yet. I mean, we're okay, we're in a better place, but the students are still hurting. I recommend the trauma-based classes for school-wide, because our students are hurting emotionally and socially. And thank you, Member Perez, for bringing that out. First question, Member Perez, Lillian Perez, close. I'm on the threat management. How does that interface with Gaggle? And you might want to say a sentence, define Gaggle, because we, the board, invested in that program to really filter out possible threats to the student, to themselves, and to others.
I can't speak too much to Gaggle, but what I can say is that anything that comes through Gaggle, whether it's suicide risk assessment or a threat, is going to be handled like any other way that it comes in, that a report comes in.
I would suggest that you know what Gaggle is. That was a very expensive.
Yeah. So and Mr. Weeks, if you could jump up real quick, and thank you, Ms. Gray, for asking that question around Gaggle, because that is something that the board invested into about a year ago. We've done a tremendous amount of work there. So, Mr. Weeks, if you could just give us a quick update on Gaggle and some of the numbers, if you have them off the top.
Okay. So I will have to go back to get the numbers specifically of how many occurrences we found when it comes to the 2 types of items that we look at from a Gaggle perspective based on the severity. But again, just to give a refresher to the board, Gaggle itself monitors our electronic systems, our email, our Canvas environment, and our Microsoft Office environment, and examines for specific items such as vulgar language, nudity, self-harm, any ideation of self-harm, any ideation of harm against others, provides a notification. They utilize an AI system to provide a first line of review. If they determine that something is found that's suspicious, it goes to a human review board. The human review board then takes that information, if it's proven that it is something that's worthwhile pursuing. That is sent over to the Gaggle team here on the district, which is generally the information goes first to the security office. They handle all of the notifications that come in. And then there are specific email threads and text threads for people such as school principals, guidance counselors, and such, based off of the severity of the specifics. We're actually coming up to our first renewal for Gaggle. There has been significant activity at all levels of notifications utilizing that system.
Mr. Weeks, thank you. What I'll do, board members, I'll provide it at the February 6th board meeting. During my superintendent's update, I'll give some numbers behind Gaggle. That was something that I do owe some information to you on, because that was approved by the board you've been about a year now, right? Been about coming up on a year now, so I'll provide an update to the board during my superintendent's comments. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And just 3 more questions. Stacy Wren, excuse me. On page 17, you say active schools. What is the difference between an active school and a full fidelity? Because without everyone buying in, just like Leadership in Me, just like all those great effective programs, unless it's adopted by the entire school, it drops its, let's just say, the teeth that it's intended to carry out. Go ahead.
So an active school is a school that has been trained within the last 5 years, either in a booster or the full 18-hour Tier 1 training, and that they actively update their data points, key data points, like including the PBI's implementation checklist. Full fidelity is measured when we do our Tier 1 walkthroughs. I'd like to note that everything PBIS is school voluntarily partaking in it. So nobody is mandated. The Tier 1 walkthroughs are not mandated. So the only way that we can monitor the fidelity truly is by walking the campus and meeting. We meet with the the teachers and the students and look on the campus, but that's by invite out. So ideally, all of our active schools would be implementing with full fidelity. All we have right now for this fall is their perception of implementation. And the schools are averaging around 65% that their perception of implementation with fidelity is there. So that's kind of like the difference, but in the ideal world, all active schools would be 100% fidelity.
Right, and that's where we want to head to. Also, we are reminded that, and I shared this with Superintendent Van Ayers, we used to have the amount of referrals, and when a school PBIS was full fidelity, the referrals dropped tremendously, and so did the COPs, which now is change of environment. So there is real data supporting this full fidelity program. And last question, we always have this frustration from principals about where do I get money, and that most principals, maybe some of the schools this is exempt, but many principals in their internal funds don't have the money to pay for such lavish, Leto's a great example, but lavish type prizes or, ping pong tables. So they try their best. So how can we do better with giving those principals the funds to really make this work? And that's my end of questions.
That's a good question. What actually we focus on a lot are the non-monetary incentives, things that that lots of high schools are implementing skip to the front of the line and lunch, or they have a fast pass line so they can do that. We actually work with the point of contacts a lot on that because that is a concern. Schools can't use federal funds to pay for incentives. They rely on internal accounts or private donors. I know a lot of the schools that built those incentive rooms. I know Brinks Foundation did a few of them. There's external partnerships that develop that. But on the other side, what we really try to focus on is the non-monetary things, because schools do struggle with being able to get the really cool prizes, but working on, again, go to the front of the line, special table seating. Years ago when I worked with Monroe, kids could cash in their points just to sit on the patio at lunch with their friends instead of being assigned to their table with their class. So and that again helps with the social emotional piece of talking to others and working with other students. It is a struggle. I'm not a philanthropist by any means to know how we can tap into it, but I do know private donors have come in. But again, we do have a huge focus on non-monetary, and we have a long list of resources that we share with the point of contacts on ways to implement that. And USF, in collaboration with other districts in the state, shares a lot of those things with us as well.
And just to add on,
I
Member Gray.
totally agree.
So PBIS, you would think through Title I that would be an allowable expense, and it is not
It
an
is
allowable.
not,
It's not.
yeah.
So I just wanted to make that clear that you cannot utilize Title I funds to purchase, and utilize the PBIS system. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and it still remains for elementary school. So, all right, I'm done. Thank you.
Members, I'll just note you have a half hour left, unless you want to extend the workshop.
Thank you, Member Gray. Member Rendon?
Yeah, thank you so much. We have so many great comments and so much great information, but I think we're at the tip of the iceberg because we're looking at a very vast and a broad scope of the entire district. With my background, I recognize the fact that even though somebody in preschool, we might be using referrals as a mechanism in which we're tracking different types of behaviors, and behaviors can be good and bad. They could come from an environment and from all different environments and have a behavior because that's where they came from, not necessarily because they're purposely doing something wrong, but because they don't know any different, because that's what their culture is or what their norm is. And so going then into an environment of a school where there's structure and organization, it takes time to adjust from that. And so we use the word referral, but yet it may be a point in contact in which we're tracking the data to be able to get them the resources they need. And I think you made a mention of that just because you have certain referrals doesn't mean you're automatically going to go right to the discipline. We have that, and I think that is something that this is just the tip of the iceberg that we really need to uncover and look at more and more different options on the table. PBIS is a huge factor. I think that none of us really understand the full scope of the benefit of it. It does change both the way in which we implement a day-to-day classroom management, it's way in which we implement school management, right? How in which we are going to address kids moving to and from school, one classroom to the other, and how we address those students. It changes the whole, I want to say perception in a school, right? We're getting caught doing good, is what I like to say, and that's what changes with PBIS. It goes away from the concept of we're targeting those that are not, but we're catching those that are doing good, and we're changing the culture and the climate of a school. And so I think that's where we see more. I think we're at the tip of the iceberg. I'm anxious to see the data by school, by the report cards. Of course, we need to remove student, impersonal information, but it's so important, I think, that we recognize that we are aware that there are issues and that we are addressing them. So many times over the years, it's just been, this is the way it is, instead of really looking at this could be an issue and how can we address it. I also think that something we've not brought into this that Owen Young's department is really focusing on is the parent involvement across the board, across our schools. Getting our parents back in schools, getting our community back in our schools is a huge factor in changing the perception, changing what's happening in our schools. And so I think that gives a shout out to Owen's department and really making an effort into that. I think that's something we need to grow on. We need to be a part of that, and we need to show them. We need to give students opportunities to do better. I think that's something we need to show them. When they're in an activity or a sport or an organization, whether it's orchestra or band or color guard or football or basketball or even clubs, when they have leadership roles and they know that leadership role comes with a responsibility, they're going to want to be that example. We have to give them those opportunities, and we need to provide those in our schools. And I think that it's an overall look. And so thank you guys for bringing this to our attention, bringing this information. But I do think that this is literally the tip of the iceberg, and what we need to bring, we need to move down from here. And what can we do? Where can we put our words into action? And how can we as a board support that in what we do? So thank you.
Thank you, Member Rendon. Member Vaughn?
Thank you. I'm glad to see some talk about implicit bias training, because that's one of the things I was trying to get at, is whether or not we're allowed to do that anymore. I had tried to bring a policy back a couple years ago about training all our teachers on implicit bias, and some of the concerns were too much training for teachers and not wanting to put that workload on there. So I'm curious to know what that looks like if we offer implicit bias training, how laborious that is, and that's information that you can get back to me. But I think it's important not only in the disproportionate of races, but again, when we go back to our dress code, what I'm looking at here is, students have the right to dress as they choose, as long as it does not disrupt activities, is not obscene. Again, that's all kind of subjective, right? Up to whoever's making that decision. If there's someone who's plus size, they might wear something that's the same thing as someone who's thin, and that becomes obscene. So I think that a lot of, going back to Member Washington's point, is more definition and consistency and making sure we're not bringing these implicit bias in. And what I'm confused on is, again, with the erosion at the state level of DEI, what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. And again, this is stuff that you can follow up with me, but that was what my original question was, is how much room do we have for that? Because I think when we come down to it, what we're really seeing driving a lot of this is biases, positive behavior support, also social emotional learning. I know we aren't allowed to use that word. It's a dirty word, whatever term we want to use to make it seem that we're supporting our whole children and giving them support to have the responses so that it fosters kindness and respect. And that's what it comes down to also when we come to classroom management, because you can put in the procedures, but if you don't have the intention behind it, then it doesn't matter what procedures you teach. The next thing I'm glad Member Gray brought up the point about the PBIS rooms specifically, because I know that even though we're focused on non-monetary things, they have a huge impact in student engagement, and access to that I think is a huge thing. And the Brinks Foundation has been spectacular. They've even come over to my district, put one in Liberty Middle School, and all the kids can talk about is that PBIS room and how they want to go to Liberty Middle School because of that PBIS room. Like, it's a game changer. So if we can't, provide it through federal funds, if we can look at other ways to give different schools that, and sometimes it's not even the stuff in it, it's just making sure that they have a space for it. Because I know as we transition Buchanan, they had a space identified for their PBIS room, and now we're talking about the boundary changes. They might not have a space for that. So I think we need to have discussions about equity, not just in getting the rooms up and running, but making sure that we prioritize them and make space for them. So I think access in the PBIS, to Member Gray's point, questions are something that I'd like to get with you. I know that you work very hard and you're always very open. We've had some meetings previously about that, and how schools self-identify, because I know you said we're expanding that. Is that based on something that we've identified? Is that the school identifying? How do we do more to support our schools to transition to PBIS? Because obviously not all schools are taking advantage of that. Also, I know to Member Hahn's point that I totally agree, and I've talked about this forever, that a lot of times when our students come out of our schools with, even when they're not just certifying quickly, but even coming out of our Department of Education, they're not always prepared for what it's like in our transformation schools. And having these conversations, I know we used to have an agreement with UT where they had a program specifically to help train and foster and give extra support to our teachers and our support staff in our transformation schools and what that looks like. And I know a couple years ago when we had a change in superintendents, that MOU and that agreement was discontinued. And I'd love to see if that's an opportunity, since they have already focused on that and have a program like that, to go ahead and renew that partnership so that we can support our teachers and support staff and administrators in our transformation schools, because it requires so much more when you have to think about students who don't have food or clothing or have not, been able to sleep at night for whatever reason, or are homeless students. There's so many factors that we need to really support our educators in some of our schools that have less support in marginalized communities. So I would love to see, again, if we can redo that. And I think that's all I have. Thank you very much. I appreciate all your work and all of this discussion. I feel like the board in general is all kind of on the same page about that, and I think that's really positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. And I want to thank you both for this much needed presentation today. Student services, mental health supports. I'm going to ask the question when you on your presentation, page 15. you talk about assessing mental health services. So I want to talk about the transformation schools, our high need schools. Do all of our high need schools have a full-time social worker, school psychologist, and school counselor?
I wish I had that information right in front of me, but that's something that we can get.
So the answer is not all of them have a full-time. We can pull that, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to bring, so thank you, Ms. Perez. Great question. I'll get Holly Saya to come up and give some of our student services full-time, which are vacant, which aren't, update. Yes. Yeah. Is it assigned? Yeah. Great question. Hi, Holly.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for asking that question. So what we do is we have formulas that we use. Unfortunately, right now there is a critical shortage. So not all schools have full-time professionals at each site. However, I do have a list that I can provide of those schools that do. Luckily, social work seems to be our area where we have the most individuals, and many of our schools do have full-time social workers. Every school is allocated a full-time school counselor as long as there's not a vacancy at that particular site. But yes, in elementary schools, they get at least one full-time school counselor. In middle schools, they get at least two. And then in high schools, it depends on the numbers when we utilize that. Like I said, in social work, because of the needs that we have, we are able to, at many sites, have that full-time. School psychologists, unfortunately, is truly a critical shortage area, and in those, we do not have full-time. We have to give them percentages based on the formulas that we're using.
How many social workers do we have currently working for this?
We have approximately 200 plus social workers working with us.
And how many jump from school to school?
I'd have to look at those numbers specifically to get those to you, but the most anyone has, unless they're one of our specialty individuals, for example, our homeless team, they will have more schools, but otherwise, 2 max.
2 max, okay. And how often do they stay in a school? Like, is it 2.5 days and 2.5 days, or what does that look like?
Depending on the formula and what they have, in most situations, it is like that, so that what we ask them to do is do 3 days 1 week, 2 days the next, 3 and 2, so that they're not having to travel, because what we find is those schools that have 2.5 days each, that half day is spent doing more time in the car, and we don't want them to do that. So we've asked them to work with their schools to be able to do 3 days, 2 days, then 2 days, 3 days.
And currently, what do social workers do for their students?
So social workers have vast things that they can do. They do provide mental health support. They work with those students that are having attendance issues. They help many connect them to different services within our district. So there are many things that they do to be able to assist students and make sure that our students' well-being is taken care of.
How about your psychologists? About how many do we have in this district?
Right now, we only have a little bit over 100 school psychologists, and with that, because there's such a shortage, their main focus is making sure that they're part of that multidisciplinary evaluations, because we need to make sure that our students are evaluated, and they are the one and only person that can do some pieces of that evaluation.
Okay. And then school counselors?
And then school counselors, right now we have over 400 when we look at all of our areas, but we do have vacancies at each level.
Okay. So when it comes to our students accessing mental health services, we still have, as a district, I understand the mental health shortage. As a district, we have to work on our end to staff those vacancies.
Well, we are working, please understand, we work very closely
Yes.
to recruit these staff. I recently had an opportunity to go to Tallahassee and express the need to help us with recruiting more folks to the college level. Unfortunately, we have many people that are not even coming to school anymore for these positions, and so we want help with getting students there first, because I do believe that we can attract them. We've recently got a grant within our division to help with recruitment and retention that's separate from our mental health funds that we can use for bonuses for these staff to try to recruit them. But we have to get them to go to school first so that we can even get them into our field.
What is the correlation between the high rate of referrals and the staffing in the schools?
That's a great question. That's something we can definitely pull a report and follow that up on. That's a great question just around if we notice in a particular school that we have vacancies around counselors, school psychologists, social work, what is that correlation? That's something we'll have to pull together. But that's I'm sure I think we all know what the answer is, but we'll verify that. Yeah.
Okay, because the possibility that these students accessing mental health services, is also an issue, and that referral and the correlation between those two, maybe we could look at that.
Yes, and just know, too, that at many of those schools where we may not have the school counselor or the school psychologist, we do set them up, as Lillian shared, with those agencies that we have to be able to support those students with extreme mental health needs. So even if they may not have, for example, a school counselor at that site, we do make sure that they have some sort of mental health therapist that can support those students.
I appreciate your help.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, but a lot of our students, we have to remember, do not have access to,
So to
some
that
island.
point, we have Hazel Health in all of our middle and high schools that if the parents can't access, it's also an option for our student services staff to refer those students.
Correct, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is that all the comments?
Yes.
So I just wanted to thank the board once again for this workshop. Ms. Gray, thanks for requesting the workshop. Know that my team has done a lot of work, not only preparing for the workshop, but the work that's gone into from the beginning of the school year to now. These reductions, 10% across the board in incident referrals, didn't happen by accident. They're very intentional. Some of the follow-up we have, we will give you a copy of what this Mr. Crystal provides to our regional superintendents and principals around that report card, the discipline report card. Know that we couldn't give it today. That does have identifiable information within it, so we'll have to get that blacked out in there. But just so you can see as an example how we are progress monitoring that. Really it's been around progressive discipline as well. It's about steps that leads to progressive discipline and not jumping straight to a severe consequence has also been something that we have focused on. So I just want to thank the team. We have work to do. So still with 58, so we've gone from 66,000 incidents to 58, so over 10-11% reduction. But no, we want that number to be close to zero. I mean, that is what we strive for. What can we do up front to prevent these referrals from happening? But I'm fairly pleased the results I've seen so far midway through the year in not only incident referrals but also suspensions, and those numbers that are also down. We will get you that information. We have up, so some of that had come up earlier around all of the ones that we have around the incidents, so we'll get that to you, all of it, and then I will continue to provide updates to the board around that. This is as was mentioned here before, this is a metric that correlates directly to what we all want, which is academic excellence, student achievement. If we have students that are being disciplined and out of school, we are not going to see the improvements we want to see. So know that this is a central focus for me. This team has worked hard for half a year. We're only halfway through, and we've seen a 10% reduction. We'll continue to look for those reductions.
I was just thinking, Madam Chair, real quick. Oh, I just thought a data point to the conversation that Superintendent Van Ayers is saying about all the referrals. I think you should go ahead and put an asterisk on the repeat offenders. Because remember, those high numbers, there's a handful that do it over and over again, and that would help us understand that it's not this growth, but it's the same 18, 26.
And the report that we will give out to you guys has the unique number in there, so that has all that information. So we'll get that out to the board as well. Yes, ma'am. I think that's it.
Any further questions, comments? Seeing no further questions or comments, this meeting's now adjourned.